Welcome to the podcast of MotorWeek, television's original automotive magazine. MotorWeek is made possible by Lucas Oil, TireRack.com, and RockAuto.com. Here's your MotorWeek podcast host, John Davis.
Thank you, Alec Webb, and welcome everyone to MotorWeek podcast number 283 from MotorWeek Central in Owings Mills, Maryland. And if you haven't figured out where that is, check your phone. Anyway, with us today in Studio C is Greg Carlos, Jessica Ray, and Alexander Killam. You like Alexander? Alex? We call him Alex, obviously.
Yeah.
What do you answer to?
Alex, in like any casual sense, but on all my written stuff, I do Alexander.
It's very formal.
Yeah.
All right, we've got a lot to cover today. We've got 4 vehicles. We have a lightning round. We have a question that came in from Instagram. We'll see if anyone's got any rant and raves, but let's start with a vehicle that has gotten a lot of pre-production promotion, the 2024 Chevrolet Blazer EV. And Alex, why don't you start us off on that?
Sure. Yeah.
Tell us what it is and when it's coming.
Okay. Yeah, so I've been writing quite a number of articles, it feels like, about it. It's really neat little... well, it's the Blazer, but now all electric.
So what is it? Are we calling this a compact SUV or a midsize? Probably compact, I would guess.
I would imagine so. I know it's getting the refresh for 2023, but I don't think the proportions are changing at all. Yeah.
Go ahead.
It's kind of looking like a wagon.
Well, it looks. I think the shape has changed a little bit.
Right.
All right. We interrupted you. Go.
No, you're fine. So to preface all this, I don't think we're seeing it until summer of 23. So still got about a year to go. So things can always change. I don't think the shape's going to change, but pricing and all that kind of stuff will. So it's going to launch with 2 trims. And then we're going to get 2 more trims as time goes on. There's also a police version, but I have a feeling we will not get our hands on that one.
You never know.
Hey, I'm here for it. If we can get one, I'm all for it.
Has to have a light bar, though.
Yes, yeah, exactly. So it's going to launch with the 2LT and the RS. Had to make a spreadsheet for it, but shameless self-plug on our This Just In that I had to write for it, Chevy provided a nice little spreadsheet for it. So if any of this, you get lost in the sauce, just go look at that, and it lays it all out. So the 2LT, which will be kind of like temporarily the entry-level model until the 1LT comes out later, this one's going to be available as front-wheel drive standard, and then you will be able to get all-wheel drive. Estimated right now at 293 miles on a full charge, and I assume that's with the front wheel drive configuration.
Yeah, it's respectable.
They haven't put out all the battery specs and all that kind of stuff, so you kind of have to bear with it. Starting MSRP, again, estimations about 47 grand, between 47 and 48.
And we should know that there's no government assistance right now because GM's used up all of their tax credits.
Correct. The RS launching at the same time. Interestingly enough, so it says four-wheel drive or front-wheel drive standard. I'm sorry, with available all-wheel drive and rear-wheel drive. Originally, when that infographic came out, it listed rear-wheel drive as also standard, but then on the Chevy site now, it kind of clarifies that a little bit. So rear-wheel drive, to my knowledge, will be an option, and this one is boasting 320 miles of range.
Wait a minute. I'm confused. They're going to have front-wheel drive,
yes,
or rear-wheel drive, or all-wheel drive?
Yeah, for the RS, that's what it listed as. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Look, you're confused. I'm confused.
Who would go front-wheel drive in the RS?
And that's what's interesting about it is for the range, they say, oh, this one gets 320 miles of range with the rear-wheel drive. So that plays into the mix there. MSRP does get bumped a little bit up to about $52K. So
that's still not, awful. But John, can you think of a car in America that's ever been sold with those 3 options?
No, and the only reason I think you would make that is because police departments like rear drive. And I can see, and I'm just guessing here, that the police version will be a rear-wheel drive or an all-wheel drive because
It'll be based on the RS, is what you're thinking. You don't think they would want all-wheel drive?
some markets do, but some don't. If you're basically down in the warm weather areas, they don't necessarily feel like they need all-wheel drive. Yeah. So, but we are clear about that. They are saying that they're going to market the RS, the Blazer EV, in a front drive, an all-wheel drive, or a rear drive.
Yeah.
That is really weird.
Yep.
No, and I've never heard anybody doing that before. But, what this says is, if we're correct, and we certainly think we are, is because there's less complexity, you're not dealing with lots of big drive shafts and all that stuff. Sure. You can do something like that.
Yeah, it's a little strange, but I guess you could say there are some trailblazers. I've ruined it.
So this is a 5-passenger, roughly somewhere between a compact and a midsize SUV.
And it gets better with the SS trim, which is going to launch later that year in the fall. This is all-wheel drive only, and it's their performance model. It's actually the first time a Chevy EV has gotten the Super Sport designation, which is pretty neat.
Really?
I believe so. That's what they were touting it as.
The first, say that again?
I believe it's the first Chevy EV to get
EV.
Yeah.
Okay. I thought
SUV.
I did too, and I was going to say there was a Blazer, a Blazer SS before.
No, this is the first Chevy EV to get
Chevy EV to get the Super Sport
SS designation. Right. So this is going to get 290 miles of range on a full charge. It's all-wheel drive only, and it's
that's your Mustang Mach-E GT rival.
That's what it's vying for. It's estimated, I think, a 0 to 60 time of under 4 seconds. So that's pretty cool. The MSRP, it's up there. It's about $66K. So,
which is close to
it is,
it's competitive.
But you got to remember, they don't have that $7,500 tax credit where a lot of the others at that price do. So actually, it sounds a little high to me. It seemed. I think the base model they're talking about being down in the 30s, but that's not here yet.
So,
no. Eventual base models.
Well, so I have it here actually. The 1LT is the one you're thinking of. That's going to be winter of 24, front wheel drive only. Still looking at about, at least what I saw, $44,000.
Really?
I think you're thinking of the Equinox.
I must be because that's going to be aimed at fleets. The Equinox will be aimed at fleets,
and that they did tout saying that. Specifically, it was going to be in the 30s.
And
that comes later. That comes in 2024.
But they have to do that because every manufacturer that's trying to do mass market, if they don't have that $7,500 or a large amount of that for tax credit, they're going to be at a substantial competitive disadvantage against folks like Volkswagen, Kia, Hyundai, and so forth for at least another year or so.
Well, and I mean, GM already has those thoughts because look at the Bolt. They lowered that about that $7,500,
and they're going to keep the Bolt. So I guess you could argue, and I know that we're getting off topic here, that they've already got an entry level EV SUV. They're going, although it's not available in all wheel drive, the Equinox will fill in that all wheel drive void, and then of course the Blazer, being the more sporty and performance oriented, will be above that. Okay, all right. So the tiered pricing sort of makes sense.
Right. And again, these are all estimates, so things can obviously change.
Right.
And like in the normal Blazer, it's sort of almost a little more of a premium.
Well, yeah, it was
entry.
always, I mean, if you go back and look at our road test, we sort of touted it as, it got the Camaro treatment.
Yeah.
And that's basically it, Okay. So, any other details about it you want to impart? We don't really know that much about it. Otherwise,
this just came to me. Hold on, I have a pun.
Yeah.
The Pone E Wars.
Oh, no.
This one in the Mach-E.
No.
Hey, that's
what are we
that's
talking about?
really very good.
You have a trailblazer, and now you're going to jump on me?
That's very good.
Mine was objectively
but I
low
think
at first.
It's going to be in our road test.
But seriously.
Yeah, the Pony World.
Seriously, though, puns aside, I mean, that's what we're getting to now, is that this is basically a Camaro SUV, and its SS will go up against the Mach-E GT.
That's right.
So it's a whole different
It is a
level
Pony War.
And they're SUVs.
I knew there was a reason we asked you to come.
I hope somebody from, somebody who makes decisions and
we're writing it down.
Yeah, I guess the only other thing to say is Super Cruise will be available with it, so that's neat.
Gotta love Super Cruise.
Yeah.
I mean,
if you never tried Super Cruise, it's the one semi-autonomous system that we all think works, because it basically has the highways already mapped into it.
yeah, it's excellent.
It's the responsible
Yes, the responsible is a good word.
semi-autonomous system.
First Chevrolet Blazer EV, you told us, but when's it going to launch?
The first 2 offerings will be summer of 23.
So we're still a year away.
Now. Yep.
Right. Okay. All right. Let's move on to something more current. The 2022 Kia Sorento PHEV. Now, PHEV, plug-in hybrid, the type of vehicle with both an electric and a gasoline powertrain, but also enough battery to actually give you some real distance, and you can plug it in and recharge it. The type that most American manufacturers have sort of avoided, but the Koreans and some of the Europeans are embracing them more. Greg, kind of take us through the PHEV Sorento and why PHEV, besides what I just said.
We are full of puns today. You said something more current with the PHEV.
Yes.
Yeah, sorry
Well,
about that. That was worse
I'll
than my
unplug
Pony
from the
Awards.
conversation.
So, yeah, Kia Sorento debuted, gosh, I mean, talking COVID time now. What was it, like 100 years ago?
Yeah.
No, it was like 2 years ago. And very, very popular. It's still hard to get a hold of one. I know my in-laws bought one. It took them a while because it's a very good-looking SUV. It's a 3-row SUV. So this plug-in hybrid makes it the first 3-row plug-in hybrid electric vehicle. Or the way, hold on, Kia said something. They had it, let me go to my notes.
I think that might be right.
It is the only mainstream PHEV available with 3 rows, is how Kia puts it.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure they're right. There might be something that we could be missing.
The new Outlander PHEV is not available yet.
That's right.
That very
currently available.
That's right.
very small third row.
Right.
Anyway, let's get to the meat of it. So it starts with a 1.6-liter turbocharged engine, which is connected to the hybrid system. In this case, it is a plug-in hybrid, so you can plug it in at a full charge of the 13.8 kilowatt-hour battery. You get about 30 miles of all-electric driving range. I drove this one quite a lot over a weekend, and it was not an experience I expected from a PHEV. Now it seems like a lot of PHEVs, when you get that all-electric range, I mean, that's it. You're just cruising on all-electric range. It actually has some pretty good torque out the gate. This one, I didn't really feel like I got it. And if you really wanted any kind of hard acceleration, it would default to the gas engine very
Even
quickly.
if you had that button.
Yeah. So if you wanted to accelerate quickly, it would, even if you had EV mode selected with the button on the console, it wanted to go to that. The gas.
It wanted to have the gas to assist.
Because the electric motor is only like 90 horsepower, and this is a heavy vehicle. It's like it's like 300 pounds heavier than the hybrid, the regular hybrid, not plug-in. So it has a lot of weight it has to get moving, and the electric motor, honestly, I didn't feel like it was up to it.
So really, it's when you were talking about doing hard acceleration. So really, it's staying true to the original Toyota concept, which was you've got the gas engine, but the electric motor is just a helper. Now, I'm sure if you were light on the pedal, you started off with the electric.
Yep.
Okay, so it's really a traditional hybrid system.
Correct. It's closer
with a larger battery.
It's closer to the original hybrids than it is the modern plug-in hybrid vehicles. You're right. If you are real easy on it, you can stay in EV mode up to highway speeds, but you really, I mean, it's like it is like a hairline.
That's
where if you go too hard, you're going to get into the gas engine.
That's the way the early Priuses were.
And when the gas engine does kick in, I mean, that's 261 horsepower total system output, which is pretty good. Like I said, though, being so used to now electrified vehicles, I didn't get that real surge of EV power.
It's not a pure EV.
No,
I mean, we just
it's
had almost that same powertrain in the Kia Sportage, and it's very smooth, but it is basically a traditional hybrid powertrain just with a bigger battery.
The maybe non-traditional is that it runs through a 6-speed automatic transmission, so it's not a CVT.
Yeah. Thank God.
Even weirder is that the EV, the electric motor also runs through it. So when you're driving in EV, you actually have shifts too. So there's like interruptions in power, which is again odd compared to modern plug-in hybrids. Standard all-wheel drive, which is a big thing for, we've talked about it. A lot of the country loves all-wheel drive. It's standard here. And then to our point about tax credits, GM's out of them, Kia still has them. So this vehicle does qualify for roughly $6,500 of tax credit, which
that's really substantial
makes it
for
worth
a
it,
PHEV.
considering that actually I think so this has a 79 MPGe rating when you have used plug-in power. But when you're just running on hybrid power alone, it actually is not as efficient as their standard hybrid. It's 34 MPG combined compared to 35. So then you're like, well, why would you do that? Well, the tax incentive, you actually do get, you could get a fair chunk of change for buying this vehicle.
Yeah, tax incentives, by the way, folks, are based on the size of the battery as well as the number of vehicles they've built.
Yeah, what is that number? Is it?
I've forgotten exactly, but it's. I want to say 24, but I'm not sure that's right.
No, it's not, because this is 13.8. I think it's
yeah,
lower.
but it's stepped.
Oh, you mean the
for
amount
the maximum,
you
like
get.
the
$7,500,
$7,500, but I could be wrong.
Yeah,
on that.
and then my final, because I drove this thing couple months ago, I think. The interior is slightly different. There's a rotary shifter. I've never been a huge fan of them, but it's whatever.
Yeah.
I mean, it is what it is. I don't care.
They're new. The only good thing about them is that the modern rotary shifters are designed to default to park if you do anything stupid, like don't hit the off button properly, don't shift it back into park or open the door.
Which we've all done.
Which we all do. And, anyway.
So basically, I wouldn't call this a thoroughly modern plug-in hybrid powertrain, but 30 miles, which I experienced as a very solid estimation when it gave me, I think it might have even said like 35 at one point when I had a full charge. Let's say it's a solid 30, and for most people, that's a day's commute.
Right.
I mean, and if you can plug it in while you're at work, that's awesome. So. And then it just comes in a really handsome and technology-laden package, which we've seen with all the other Sorentos too. So
I think the one that we tested was just under $50,000.
yes, 49 grand.
That was loaded, obviously.
Yep. SX Prestige is 49 grand.
So I'd like to have that $6,500 off, assuming that the dealer doesn't try and charge you a premium of $6,500.
Good point.
So okay, that's the present. In a way, we're going to kind of go back to the future now and talk about the 2022 Lincoln Navigator. Yes, folks, full-size body-on-frame SUVs still exist, and they're incredibly popular. And Jessica, take us through this big POSH, posh SUV. So,
well, it's big. It doesn't get a complete redesign. This is just a substantial
fairly
refresh.
Substantial refresh. It's still built on the F-150 chassis.
Yes,
so.
same chassis, same engine. It's got the 3.5 liter twin turbo V6, except now it has 10 less horsepower than it did before.
And they didn't explain that, so.
No,
yes.
So I don't think fuel economy really changed at all.
No.
So.
No, it still sucks gas pretty well.
So it could have just been a slight driving dynamic situation. Who knows? But yeah, the exterior gets an update, new front fascia, I believe. It still looks like a Navigator, I guess, in the traditional sense. I think like when I see it, especially when you like look at it from the rear, it looks, I think, quite like the Expedition. I think.
Well, because it is.
They're twins in a way. But but yeah, they look they still look a lot alike.
6,000 pounds.
It's a big boy. Yeah, 6,000 pounds. It can tow still 8,700. You get a new, like, larger screen inside, which is a big deal. It's 13.2 inches, and that comes with Sync 4, which is sort of exclusive to Lincoln, apparently. And it does have the Lincoln equivalent of Blue Cruise in it, which is called Active Glide, which I honestly, that's
Glide.
That's the first time I'm hearing that like nomenclature.
It sounds like a dance from the 30s or something.
I don't know. It's interesting.
Electric Glide.
I kind of wish they would have just called it Blue Cruise. I mean, we know that they're related, and I think GM is just calling everything
It's just Super Cruise all around.
Yeah, that's right.
Well, Lincoln has always been recently have really been trying to separate themselves from Ford.
True.
I remember when they, was it the Continental that came out with the twin turbo V6 that was like very special to Lincoln, that you could only get it in a Lincoln. I wish I had more research on that, but I just know that Lincoln has tried very hard, or Ford in general, has tried to separate the two brands because, I mean, as we've driven a Expedition, which can get pretty pricey, but I mean, you get a lot of what you get in my opinion, in a Lincoln Navigator as you do in an Expedition. So.
I mean, it's clearly, it's like the Escalade. I mean, that's why everybody knows the Escalade is based on a Tahoe Suburban, but at the same time, it doesn't look like it, even, once you get below the skin. And I think Lincoln's actually done a very good job of not making, aside from maybe the profile shape, them look the same. As the Expedition. Well, and interior is certainly very different, I think.
Right. And I have to say, like, I mean, I feel like I've said this a million times. It's just like the gap between, where the top of the line Expedition is and the bottom of the Navigator lineup is, like, they're so darn close, Yeah, I mean, it's a different car, but it's.
Well, let's face it. People that are buying prestige brands want that name. I mean, that is a lot of it.
Well, do you think the Navigator name means as much as it did back in the early 2000s? I think Navigators were really
clearly Lincoln is trying to make their brand more prestigious. I mean, that's the whole. If they don't, I mean, I think it's very clear. This is what's going on right now with Lincoln. If they can't separate themselves from Ford and become a very strong standalone brand, I'm not sure they'll be around, 10 years from now, where I think Cadillac will be.
Right.
I mean, we've seen that happen at other automakers. And, they got rid of Mercury. And sort of when they did that, everybody sort of said, yep, well, this will be Lincoln's last stand. And they've done pretty well. I mean, if you look at their other offerings, they have pretty distinctive offerings. So
yeah, Nautilus, Aviator. What's their best seller now? Probably, I would assume it's probably like Nautilus, because that's like it's like that compact.
Is that the same size as that's the lower one? Yeah, so I think like the 5-seaters are their best sellers.
Yes, the Aviator was the big deal a few years ago when they came out with that.
But I have to say, very plush, incredibly roomy.
I mean, it's drive smooth.
It's 18 to 20 miles per gallon, folks, is all you're going to get. But then if you can afford up to 6 figures, I guess you don't care.
True. I mean, I think it's just hard. It's like tough to be like, put the twin turbo V6 in there when, I don't know, you could probably still get the same fuel economy with a V8.
I think you probably could be very close to it.
And I know it's like the smaller engine and impact and blah, 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 because we see it in literally everything, but I'm like,
well, they've gone back and put the V8 in the Raptor R, so over the Ford side, I think, because everybody complained. But I don't think Navigator. I don't think Navigator people really care what's under the hood as long as it goes.
No, I mean, as long as it's a smooth ride and it is. It's a plush.
And the seats
huge.
move a million different ways.
True.
And right now, folks, if you're looking for a real full-size body-on-frame SUV, they're few and far between.
Yeah, I think someone said there are technically 18 on the market that you can buy that are body on frame.
Wow.
But keep in mind that, something like this is on there where it starts at 80,000 and peaks at 110. And a G-Class is on there as well.
Yeah.
And so,
And which would you rather have? That's a discussion for another day. We've got one more vehicle we'll talk about, and we'll save it for a little later in the show. It is the rebirth of a very historic name, of course, in a modern form, and it's from our friends at Toyota, and we'll get to that in a little bit. Let's turn our attention, though, to our lightning round, where we sort of just do a little round robin here and see what everyone thinks about this story that we picked up out of automotive news. A Subaru dealership in Oregon is selling vehicles at sticker, but only to locals. In other words, if you're not a local, they're going to go after you and charge you lots of extra. They're turning down, actually, out-of-market buyers who are willing to pay more. So basically, they're selling them at sticker to locals, and if you're not from the local market, they're saying, thanks very much, but we'd rather not deal with you. The dealership is hoping that it will be more profitable in the long term, even if it costs them revenue up front. What do you think of the strategy? Let me just preface our answers. We're saying a lot of folks right now are buying vehicles on the internet from dealers way out of their state, like across the country, and having them shipped in just to avoid basically all the additional markup. Here's a dealer who's saying, I'm a local dealer. I exist for my local community. And I believe it was a fairly small town. And what do you think?
I mean, I think it's the right thing to do, but I find their reasoning behind it, like, wanting to be in the good graces of everyone, because this isn't going to last forever. This weird moment that we are in, and I think a lot of dealerships are burning bridges as we speak because they're. I don't want to use the word greedy, but kind of greedy.
I don't see how you can say. I mean, even the manufacturers are saying that their dealerships are being greedy. So yeah. Taking advantage. Okay, we're America, supply and demand, but come on, folks.
It's ridiculous
you're
at
just
this
putting
point.
lots of extra profit on top of something because you can.
It's not helping, inflation rates.
Right.
It's not helping people anybody like out there who can't afford the $50,000 average price tag of a new vehicle.
And what doesn't get talked about, that extra money you're paying above sticker is not included in the normal depreciation.
Right. Yes.
So when you go back in to trade that vehicle in, you're gonna be underwater, more than the vehicle is actually worth for a much longer period, and it's going to hurt you on your next vehicle purchase.
They're already seeing that in DC of like they're going to there's like loans being defaulted, vehicles having to be repossessed because of that exact thing. And people are underwater.
This is a cool idea, and I expect something. A Subaru dealership in Oregon makes perfect sense for this to happen. I think
because there are some of, we talk about the lack of loyalty among buyers, but Subaru owners are incredibly loyal.
Very loyal, super loyal.
To a fault.
I think it's cool to see. It's a nice story to feel good about.
Good publicity.
I'm not sure it's going to last very long, especially when if there are in fact people willing to pay more money for the car that they're going to sell for less money to somebody local. I'd just be curious how long that lasts until they're like, we need to start paying the bills.
It'll last as long as supply is constrained and they can sell everyone they've got locally.
Because you know what? I mean, it's like before any of this happened, it was like if you paid MSRP for a car,
you're a sucker.
Yeah,
you're a dummy.
Exactly.
So now they're selling everything at MSRP. So to them, that's good.
Yeah. They make a decent living for everyone, and including the folks that own the dealership at MSRP. They may not be rolling in it, but it's a decent living. Okay, we have an Instagram question from SpiceBob62. I love this. I love the world
other
we're
people
in.
have Spice Bob.
Apparently.
Is there a way to create electric cars with more range without having ridiculous horsepower numbers? The Blazer EV that we were just talking about could be a nice family hauler, but I don't need 500 plus horsepower, but still want the range. Okay, who wants to start? Because the answer is we it's very confusing because you hear all these incredibly high horsepower numbers. But other things are happening here. Number one, these vehicles are much heavier than a traditional gasoline-powered vehicle of the same shape. So you need more peak horsepower to get it up to speed and, well, I should say, keep it going. That's what horsepower
torque is what you want.
Torque is what you want. Also, an electric motor produces its power much differently. It's very instantaneous. And even though the extra horsepower gives these vehicles ridiculous acceleration numbers, under 4 seconds, under 5 seconds, that we never associated with SUVs before, they level off as far as their top speed pretty quickly. So I don't know what the answer is. It seems to me that maybe it's more marketing. Like right now, if Toyota in their BZ4X that we just did a road test on, they've kept the horsepower numbers pretty low, but it's also slower in acceleration than most of the other recent EVs we've done.
And nobody wants isn't that great. That's the funny thing is like it's not like it has 400 miles of range. Right. It's like 230 in like the all-wheel drive configuration.
So Spice Bob 62, it seems to be part marketing, and you said it before we went on the air that there's a balance that obviously the engineers are trying to get between enough power to get decent acceleration numbers and, of course, range, which is affected with if you draw too much power too quickly. I don't know where this is going to settle.
Right.
I wouldn't be. Don't think of horsepower in an EV like you would horsepower in an internal combustion engine.
Right.
Torque, I'd pay a little more attention to because that'll really tell you how fast you're going to go off the line. But don't get carried away with it. It doesn't feel like 500 horsepower because of the extra weight of the batteries and so forth, and probably the gearing as well.
And it's probably all-wheel drive at that rate anyway, so much safer to, if you do get into it, it's going to be a little safer than if it's rear-wheel drive.
Yeah, we agree with you that the numbers on horsepower are starting to sound ridiculous. On the other hand, it doesn't give you horsepower should never be considered the measure of how rapidly a vehicle goes from start. That's torque. Horsepower comes in at maintaining a speed, but you have to balance that with the size of the battery, the weight of the vehicle, and probably the gearing. And we don't really know too much about the gearing.
Yeah, and I mean, I think as time goes on and EVs become more mainstream, tweaks will be made, and there's just some of these models. I'm like, I don't think everybody should be driving them just because it's so much.
That is another thing.
Power.
When you do hit the throttle full on many of these EVs we've been driving, you are thrown back in your chair.
It's a party trick.
I'm not talking about a performance vehicle
M60
necessarily.
that we did, I got on the road and it struck me at how quickly that thing.
I had a
and
charger.
I do this for a living.
These
I know
are
how fast
motorcycle type acceleration. This is the kind of stuff that when the motorcycle's accelerating through traffic, you're saying that person has a death wish. Well, now you've just put a bigger body on it, and it's an everyday vehicle.
Yeah, no, it's a lot, but it's like a party trick. It's like whenever I have an EV, that's like the first thing I show people.
Yeah.
Like if I have people around, I'm like, I'll do like,
hey kids, want to see something cool?
I'll throw back 30 years ago. We had some Porsche in. It was turbo, probably a Porsche 911 turbo, and the trick was how fast can you go from 0 to 100 to 0. And you could do that in 6 seconds. And that was amazing.
Yeah.
That's not a trick anymore.
No. People comment that all the time on like our retro reviews or on our new tests, and it'll be like a 7-second 0 to 60. John would be using that was blistering or something.
Exactly. Oh, that's what we said.
But now we're like a leisurely.
Yeah, now 7 and 8 seconds has become leisurely.
Yeah, you get like an SUV, like a Blazer that's going to be sub 4 seconds, but like most of them are going to be able to be 4.5 to 5. That you like a 4 second 0 to 60 was like awesome 10, 15 years ago. Now we're just well, it's under 4. Okay.
All right. So Spice Bob 62, I'm not sure they gave you a coherent answer, but it has to do with lots of things, and we don't get carried away by the horsepower. When you finally get a chance to drive it, you'll see whether you like it or not.
Just keep it on eco mode.
Yeah, keep it on eco mode. Stretch the battery out as long as you can. The last vehicle we're going to talk about before we get to our rants and raves is a rebirth of the Toyota Crown, a name that goes back to the 50s. And I believe it was Toyota's actually first four-door sedan automobile. But anyway, it has a lot of history. More in 1955, the Toyota Crown was Toyota's first mass-produced passenger vehicle. And the name was in the U.S. Up until about 1972.
So we never tested one.
We never tested one. It predates us. It's back on a very interesting-looking five-door sedan. It's has some unusual things, and I'll leave it to everyone else to talk about in their hybrid system. This is a hybrid, by the way, folks. And they have the regular hybrid system, and they have something called the Hybrid Max that we've had a little bit of experience with. So before we get into the powertrains, with everybody wanting SUVs today, what's going on here? Is this just a vehicle that maybe for the U.S., people might not be clamoring to get and will do better worldwide? Why do you think they put the Crown name on a sedan and not taken the route of putting it on some kind of a crossover?
I don't know what crossover you would put this on.
Well, it'd have to be something new.
It's a really important nameplate for Toyota.
Name. Yes.
Especially globally. Obviously, globally, they sell sedans. A lot of sedans.
Yeah.
This to me is the Venza, right? Like,
okay, good point.
Like, does it make a lot of sense? No, but also,
but it's a premium. It's a premium vehicle.
And now they don't have the Avalon,
right?
So that's gone, which was a historic nameplate here in the U.S. for a long time. So yeah, the Crown. I mean, it's kind of filling that gap. I can see where this sort of is bridging the gap for a future of electrification in this size vehicle. Here we do have a hybrid powertrain.
It's a full-size sedan.
Yeah. And so it has a hybrid powertrain. I can see inevitably this would be that global platform going electric, and then that's what the Toyota Crown is for Toyota.
I should give a little more details about it. This is if you haven't seen this vehicle, it's very sleek. It's got a coupish roof line, one we've gotten very familiar with just about every other brand, but particularly the Europeans. It is a good-looking vehicle. It has a different design language than we've typically seen on Toyota sedans up to now. But the thing that stands out more than anything else is they've got two choices of powertrain. You have the standard Toyota powertrain for a hybrid, and you have something called Hybrid Max, which they are billing, oddly enough, as a performance hybrid. Yeah. And I don't mean extra fuel economy. So at this point, they're trying to see whether or not they can do something by selling a hybrid that for something other than pure fuel economy, something that the folks over at Honda had tried and basically didn't succeed at. Well, it seems to me that we ought to actually describe what the Toyota Crown looks like. It's a very swoopy-looking full-size sedan, has that coupish-like roof style that we've seen on a lot of the European, particularly Audi sedans. It has a different design language than we've traditionally seen up to now on cars from Toyota. But I think the thing that stands out about it most is they're billing it. This is a hybrid, so it's got a gasoline engine with an electric motor. This is not a plug-in yet, but they're billing it as having two different hybrid powertrains. One is the standard Toyota hybrid powertrain, and one is something they're calling Hybrid Max, which we've had a little bit of experience with. And they're billing it as higher performance, but that doesn't mean better fuel economy. It means more power. And this is an approach that Honda tried on the first Accord hybrid and wasn't very successful with it. So what does anybody think about the Toyota Crown and trying to market it as a performance hybrid, i.e. more power, faster?
I'm still racking my brain trying to figure this thing out. I'll be honest with you, because you mentioned the nice silhouette, I think, but then you also look at the two-tone, like the hood is black as opposed to this press photo car is red.
Right.
It's lifted. It looks like it's kind of like
lifted,
almost like an off-roady, like Polestar Volvo-ish sort of stance. I like that, Toyota is continuing with their hybrid system. They're like, when we offer a new car, we're just going to make it a hybrid. Because
Which I think is smart.
Yeah,
I think is very smart.
We had this conversation the other day about the new HRV. Like, why not just make that a hybrid?
Right.
A car should just be a hybrid. As far as like performance, I'm not sure, again, what they're going for with
the market?
here. I know, and like, why not make it a Prime then? Because the RAV4 Prime, which they're basically selling every one they can make, has the most performance you can get in a RAV4. And it's not like they're necessarily billing it that way. They're just like, hey, here's a plug-in hybrid. Also, it's the highest performing RAV4 we can make.
And it
people love
still
it.
gets great fuel economy.
Yeah, so I'm not sure why they're getting away from that with Max. I know. I guess what I'm saying is, like, I haven't heard their explanation or read into it enough to really, understand it yet.
Well, it does have basically the 2.4 liter turbocharged engine.
That's the difference.
And that's the big difference.
Engine.
And the other thing is a 6-speed automatic transmission. So there's no CVT there. There also is going to be an all-wheel drive version as well. So you will be able to use that extra power and a decent transmission efficiently. But 28 miles per gallon city highway fuel economy
For the Max,
that just doesn't light my fire that much, even though it's a big automobile, especially since you can do a whole lot better than that with a Toyota Camry hybrid. So,
I find it
How does this
difficult.
compare to, I know it's obviously not hydrogen, how does it compare size-wise to the Mirai?
I think
are they finding that people love the idea of the Mirai and now want to offer that in a powertrain where everybody in the country can buy it?
Mirai's not that big. I would suspect this is
kind of like
sizable.
more.
Mirai's not small, though.
Mirai
No, but
is more like a Lexus-esque silhouette with low to the ground. It's kind of got more sports car-y sort of vibes to it, rather than a CUV. I think at least the latest Mirai, which I don't think we've driven.
I drove the Mirai last year at their headquarters.
Oh, you did?
Yeah.
This looks like they're trying to give people some SUV traits by probably having you sit a little higher off the ground.
Yeah. Yes.
Which we've seen, of course, people like Ford do that as well, try that as well. I don't know. It's an interesting vehicle.
It's almost like they're trying to force the sedan, though. And, like, I love a sedan as much as anybody. But, like, it's very clear where the market's going, and they're just like, let's hold on to the sedan.
This package is just interesting,
but
too.
is that okay? Isn't that okay? Because, right now, when you look at all the vehicles that are coming out, it's hard to find a new sedan. We should be celebrating, shouldn't we?
Well, there's still a lot of people who buy sedans.
Oh, there are. Absolutely.
I know that
Camry still sells a lot. Accord still sells a lot.
I don't know.
Absolutely.
You see them all the time on the road.
Yeah.
I feel like you drive down the road, you're still seeing like a half and half situation.
Right.
Yeah, I was confused by this car when, like, the very first teaser I saw in, like, big letters, it was like sedan ? SUV ? And I was like, cool, so they don't know. Yeah. I just wonder if this is kind of piggybacking off of what you said, Jessica, a little bit. It's like, I wonder if this is a move that we just don't understand yet. Maybe in the future we'll be like, the Crown. I remember.
The Venza was kind of a move that way. And I'm talking the original Venza.
It took them 2 generations to get it.
And then it went away. And then it was like, oh, wait a second. Everybody wants these car-based cars.
I see them all the time now. The Venza, they sell really well. And even the older ones, you'll see them on the road, and those people, they love that car.
Yeah.
I don't think, did we mention it's all-wheel drive standard? We might not have.
No, I think I just said all-wheel drive in passing, but no, I didn't say it was standard.
Unique for a sedan.
All right, unique. Toyota Crown. Be on the lookout for it. I think you'll know it when you see it, especially with that distinctive two-tone paint. Before we wrap things up, any rants or raves this edition of our podcast? I had one last time, but I'm dry this time.
I have a
here we go.
And this is
Oh, rave. Oh,
I have a rave.
I had a rave.
No, wait, no, sorry. No, I have,
rant.
wait, yeah, no, I have a rave.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh,
sorry.
okay.
I have a rave. So, and this was sort of brought up, a couple of people tweeted this at me because my latest Did You Know segment, which if you don't know, now you do.
Now you know.
Basically, I just talk about some misconceptions about cars and things surrounding cars. And so my latest topic was that slowing down just a little bit can save you fuel economy. And somebody else pointed out that the modern GPS has saved so much fuel waste. Because if you think about it, you're not getting lost, or you're getting lost way less. And GPSs are taking you the most direct route. Now, is it always the most green route to take? Not necessarily, because I don't know if you've seen the like Google Maps recently.
No, they fuel efficient.
They give you a fuel efficient route.
But that generally means lower speeds.
Right. But so somebody brought up this excellent point that was like, you know, you're not using maps. You're getting lost less. The GPS has probably saved a ton of wasted
really
fuel.
Interesting.
And I thought
interesting.
that's incredible.
There really is no excuse for people to get lost anymore.
Well, all right. Not all GPSs are built equal.
No, that's very true. And you have, and I tell people all the time, you've got to have some concept of where you're going.
Correct.
Right.
Yes, because roads are confusing in an unknown area.
I was in Peoria, Illinois, and I put in the address I needed to go to, and it turned out there were 2 streets in that town, in that area, that had basically the same name, and it took me to the wrong one. So
really?
Yeah. It was like Peoria and then a little suburb across the river, and the GPS didn't distinguish between the two of them. But when I was crossing the river, I knew something was wrong. Okay.
Yeah, that's my rave.
That's
I don't
good.
know if anybody else has a good one.
Greg.
No, I mean, that was pretty good. I was only going to use mine in case somebody else didn't have
Well,
one.
no. There must be something sticking in your craw.
I mean, mine is a rave that'll eventually turn into a rant. So I noticed recently that coming upon a few accidents and backups on highways, more people are starting to put on their flashers once they're ahead of you, and you're like, oh, okay, people are coming to a stop. I better slow down, which is awesome. But I don't understand why, when we test European cars that have this feature standard, I'm pretty sure, when they have hard braking, they automatically turn on the hazards. I don't know if it's all European cars, but we've had a few Euro spec models that when I do the braking test, some of them will even put the windows up and run the flashers, which
it's almost like it's a pre-crash system,
right? Which is a good idea. Like, you think about it, the car in front of you is like all of a sudden a deer jumps out, slams on its brakes. If you see the flashers come on and that person has to, like,
it's more than just a braking.
Yeah, it just seems like a real simple idea, and it's like a safety feature. It's like a why not safety feature. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like,
it doesn't hurt to include.
Exactly. Like, why like it's just like one of those like American things where like as great of things as we can do, they're just like simple things that we overlook, and it's just like, why not just include that on every car? Because obviously the different markets require it, so why not just make it across the board?
If people start noticing that, I'm sure there'll be some regulation that won't be far behind.
To the original point, way to go, people. Way to start using
very good. Just remember to turn them off if you happen to use them for any other purpose.
True.
It drives me crazy to see people driving down the road for no particular reason, still has the flashers on. But okay. Well, that brings to a close our podcast number 283. I'd like to thank our over-the-edge reporter, Greg Carlos, especially for that last rave. Our digital producer, Jessica Ray, for her rave and her analysis. And Alex Kellum, our writer, who basically is toiling at his computer screen pretty much 24/7 to bring you all of the latest automotive
Story
news.
of my life.
That's okay. We could be out digging ditches. I want to thank our audio engineer today, the great and one and only David Wainwright, who is largely responsible for everything good you hear on MotorWeek. He's the master that puts our show together every week. Yeah. Our podcast producer, of course, is Jessica Ray, and our podcast creator back in the bowels of our studio facilities here, Bob Mixter, who's always thinking of something new. To everyone out there, there. If you are new to the MotorWeek family, welcome aboard. You can find out much more about us at MotorWeek.org, our website. Basically, if you are wondering where you can watch MotorWeek in your local location, go to the website, click on the upper right where it says about the show, pull it down, put in your zip code, and you'll get the station in your area with time and day. You can also, of course, watch almost everything we've done for the last 15 or 20 years over at our YouTube site, youtube.com/MotorWeek. You can watch us on our cable partner, MAV TV, and we encourage you to do so. Go to your computer or your phone and look up mavtv.com for the latest schedule. They run us quite often. We're at pbs.org/MotorWeek, where you can stream recent episodes for free. We're out there in just about every conceivable fashion you can think of. If you have a screen of any type, you can be a part of MotorWeek. Till next time, I'm John Davis. Thanks for joining us. And as they used to say on Hill Street Blues, be careful out there.
You've been listening to the podcast of MotorWeek, television's original automotive magazine. MotorWeek is made possible by Lucas Oil, TireRack.com, and RockAuto.com. For additional information on podcasts, videos, and showtimes, visit our website at MotorWeek.org. And watch MotorWeek, television's longest-running automotive magazine series each week on your local PBS station.